it is Tuesday. And you know what we do on Tuesday. We haven't been doing it for very long, but it's Tiermaker Tuesday. So we are going to now do a little tier ranking of National League baseball teams. Is that right?
That is correct.
That was this guy's idea because he just wants to ruffle feathers. But can we get our tier maker board up there?
I absolutely love it, by the way, Jesse. I want to ruffle feathers too. It's all
I know.
I've ever wanted
You're a
to
big
do.
fan
This is
of
right
that.
up Damon's alley.
Yeah,
That's all I've ever wanted to do.
One of Damon's favorite things to do in the
Can
whole
we-
wide world.
Guys, I'll just start this off. Can we put the Phillies like really low?
I mean,
Like so low that like they get mad.
yeah, you just want to start off with that.
I just want to
You
throw it
can
out
put
there.
them in F tier right now
Because
and
of
then
the
we'll move 'em.
existence of PHOI and CHGO, we
Right.
should probably put the Cubs and the Phillies like at least one full tier lower than where they
But the
really
White
belong.
Sox are just so irrelevant. We don't even mention
Who?
them.
They're an AL team. We don't care about
They
that.
are
AL.
quite
That's-
literally irrelevant.
They
in
are
this
irrelevant
tier,
in
in
this
this tier
particular,
ranking. Yes.
so-
I was just imagining a world where Jesse was just forgetting about the White Sox again, so he was just roasting
Right,
them again.
right. We watched the White Sox beat the Diamondbacks, so I don't know how much roasting we can do right now. But what we can do is we could start off by putting the Colorado Rockies in the F tier. I mean, I don't think that there's any
All right, that's
question
a good
about
play
that.
off the bat.
Is that a good start?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I mean, there's the DNVR, right? So let's just shoot. Let's take shots right now. They're a terrible baseball team, and they're going to continue to be terrible. But you know what they're also going to do? They're going to continue to like have crazy attendance, and it's going to infuriate the true fans so much that they can never send the proper message to their ownership with that going on.
Are we going like from the bottom up? Is that how
No,
we're? Is
I
that
don't
how we're
care.
doing
No,
this?
I just wanted to start things off with the Rockies.
I think
in
that
the
was
F
a
tier.
good start.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like you said, you wanted to ruffle feathers. You said you wanted to make enemies. So let's just start off right away.
All right, I'm gonna stick with the trend of bad baseball teams.
Okay.
We're gonna keep going from the bottom here.
Okay.
The Washington Nationals
Yes.
are probably the next team.
F tier.
I think that's probably fair.
That's more than fair.
Yeah. They are projected for 58.6 wins on Pacoda.
And
It's pretty bad.
I saw that satin starter jacket that they have on. You guys were talking about in the episode I wasn't on, which I was very mad you talked about laundry without me on it.
We did talk about laundry
Yeah,
without
I mean,
you
if
on
I
it, yes.
if I could take them down another level for that white jacket, I absolutely would, because it was a terrible jacket.
Yeah,
It was a terrible
Patrick
jacket.
didn't like it either.
Their logos are terrible. Everything's terrible. They have a terrible team. All right, next up, what else we got? Elise says DNVR has to know the Rockies are terrible. I don't think they'll be offended. Yeah, you're right about that. We all know how bad the Rockies are.
If they have a problem with the Rockies being an F tier, they're kind of just wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just kind of the reality of the
Right.
situation at this point.
Right. Okay. So I think we should close out the F category. I don't know if you have more teams than this, but I'm putting the Pirates in the F category. Is that fair?
The Pirates
Is
are
that not
clear.
fair?
They're clearly better than the Rockies.
Correct. And their
Nats in my
future is
mind.
brighter. So, okay, I will rescind
put
that
the
and I'll put
Pirates
them in the D.
In the D tier.
D
yes.
tier. Pirates can go in the D tier.
If
All
the
right,
Pirates
legend,
get,
Nick Gonzalez, he's gonna have a big year this year.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. If the Pirate, if like O'Neal Cruz comes back, like he's a really exciting young player.
Sure. They have a few of those.
Yeah. I think the Pirates are a step above the Nats and the Rockies.
Do you have any other teams in the F tier?
No, I don't think the F tier.
Okay.
I think it's probably just the Rockies and the Nats.
All right, then let's move up to essentially. Oh wait, we have a D tier. Okay, it's C tier. Okay, so Pirates, I'm putting in the D tier, and
They might be alone there, honestly.
I don't really have a lot of others. Yeah, because
like the Mets were obviously a pretty miserable team last year,
Right.
but they're like projected to be an above 500 team, which I don't know if I fully buy that, but I think they're better than a D tier team.
okay, so where would you put the Mets, as a C or a B? Since we're talking about them, let's just rank them.
Yeah, that's tough.
I get what you're saying.
I
and
think I would probably put the Mets in the C tier.
Okay.
Kodai Senga, I believe, is potentially not on track to be ready for opening day,
Correct.
which is a big problem for them. Their position player group is I think better than people maybe think it is. They obviously, things weren't great for them last year, but you talk about having Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor. Francisco Alvarez is a player I really like. Brandon Nimmo. They made some additions this offseason. They're a decent team. I think C is pretty fair.
We need to clarify for the chat. I know that there's a lot of logos on here because these are all the Major League Baseball teams, but we are only tier ranking National League Baseball teams. So no, the Oakland A's would not be a part of this. nor with the Chicago White Sox, nor with any of the teams.
Yeah,
in the
that's
American
fair.
League.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yes. If anyone came in thinking that we were doing
Marcos
the
is
whole
upset.
league,
He wants to know what the hell we're doing, and that's fair because he said the A's are at F tier. What the heck? Yeah, no, that's fine.
talk about not knowing baseball, Derek.
Right.
If we had just skipped over F and D and we're like, all right, we're in C.
We're
like,
in C now,
what do you think?
and
The
all
A's,
the other teams are this high or
A's in
better.
the B tier or the C tier, Derek? I don't know.
All right. Well, I want to definitely put the Cardinals in the C tier. That's who I think belongs in the C tier.
Okay.
Because I think their offseason moves were trash, and I think they're still going to be a bad baseball team.
They might be the definition of a C tier team.
Right?
I could make a case for the Cardinals as a B tier team.
Okay.
The computer projection things like the Cardinals a little bit. They view them as being the best team in the Central.
They always like the Cardinals.
Yeah,
very true.
I think, I mean, Sonny Gray starting the season on the injured list, which it appears is what's going to happen because of a hamstring issue. That's a big development for them.
There's a lot of pitchers starting the year on the injured list, man. I mean,
yeah,
we're going to talk about Lucas Giolito with the Boston Red Sox here in a little bit, but man, I mean, it feels like a lot of these top tier pitchers and even some of the ones that, you know, teams added are not coming in healthy this year. It explains why we've heard the word health said from so many Diamondbacks so far this spring, that health and getting yourself up to a level where you're ready to play 162 games at a speed that's kind of slow enough where you don't hurt yourself while you're getting ramped up is kind of a careful balance. But
yeah,
of course, yeah, I still don't care for the Cardinals one bit. All right. What else you got?
All right. If we're sticking in C tier, I think the San Diego Padres are a team that you could make a case for. I think the Miami Marlins are a team you could make a case
I disagree
for.
with that. I think
the Reds.
I think the Marlins and the Reds are B tier teams. I really do.
Okay.
At least the Reds are.
That's
I think
fair.
the Reds got pulled down by injuries and stuff, but I think they're a young and exciting team. I think they're going to be a problem this year.
Did Damon just put the Padres in the C tier?
I thought that's what we were saying.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's wasn't that what you were saying?
I hadn't quite gotten there yet. I think that's where I was gonna land, but I hadn't quite made the final call in my head.
Let's talk about this.
You were verbally.
Let's talk about the Padres pitching staff. Let's talk about the rotation.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
How can you put
Jesse.
them in B tier with that rotation?
Correct.
I mean, Musgrove
Jesse.
and Darvish is a pretty decent one too, but you're right that there's a lot of question marks after that. They
You're
don't
just
really
saying Darvish because we're Diamondbacks fans.
the
That's one reason why you're
Padres
saying
like
Darvish.
don't do outfielders anymore. Like that's just like not a thing that they. I mean, they have Tatis, right, who can play right field, but center field and left field, they just kind of like traded away some guys and then they didn't replace them, which continues to be bizarre.
They just didn't do much. Like they didn't do anything. What did the Padres do this offseason?
They signed Yuki Matsui. I think their bullpen is decent. Yeah, I mean, obviously the Juan Soto trade was huge, but it was bigger for the, it was bigger in the immediate sense for the New York Yankees than it was for the San Diego Padres. So
Tim's saying the Padres got good depth from the Yankees in that trade for Juan Soto. So I mean, I guess I
like
don't...
Michael King. Like I think Michael King, the centerpiece of that trade, could be a good starter for them. Yeah, I'm between B and C on the Padres. What do you think?
That means they're a C team.
That means
and that's where we're
okay,
putting them.
All right.
Reds stay in B. Let's go back to the tier list. Reds staying in B. I'll let you put the Marlins in the C tier. Because again, I don't think the Marlins really did much to get better, in my opinion, this offseason. That's how I feel.
Yeah, that's fair. The Marlins were a fairly heavy negative run differential team last year. They still managed to find their way into the playoffs. And
is Luis Ariz going to hit 300 and 360 again next year, 350 again next year? I mean, like,
yeah, probably not. They don't have Jorge Soler anymore. That's a pretty big loss for them. Yeah. They signed Tim Anderson, which that not necessarily a huge upgrade on paper. Their starting rotation has depth and is pretty darn good. I do like their starting rotation a lot. They've got some pieces in the bullpen. Tanner Scott is great, but yeah, their offense continues to have some question marks. I think C is pretty fair for the Marlins.
Okay.
I think Tim Anderson is a good buy low guy.
He could be. I mean, Tim Anderson at his best was a pretty darn good baseball player.
He was putrid last year. I doubt he reciprocates that.
Yeah, he was pretty bad. He had a 60 WRC plus. and hit 1 home run in 524 plate appearances.
That would be shocking if he does that again, in my opinion.
I would take the over on 1.5 on 0.5 homers on 1.5 homers.
I'm taking over 1.5. I'm taking the over on that. What about the Cubs? Chicago Cubs.
I lean B.
Yeah, that's where I have them too.
I mean, they were like plus 100 last year. I know the you just slip when you just happen to put them in the D tier for a second.
I think it was my subconscious. I couldn't put CHGO Cubs like in a similar tier to the Diamondbacks where they're probably going to be. It was hard for me to do for a second.
I get it.
I figured that'd be difficult for you, Damon.
I get it.
Yeah, the Cubs. I mean, I could make a case for the Cardinals being a better team than the Cubs, but I think based on the seasons that those two teams had last year, I'm pretty comfortable putting the Cubs ahead of the Cardinals. I didn't love the Cubs offseason, at least what's happened so far. Obviously, getting Cody Bellinger back was a really big development for them, but that's something they just kind of had to do. I like the Shota Imanaga move that they made. He's kind of coming in, replacing Marcus Stroman. They got Hector Neris for the bullpen. So they've done some things, but it seems like they're mostly bringing the same team back. They also were a pretty decent team last year. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs, but they were close, and their run differential suggested that they were a lot better than their record showed. So I think B is pretty fair there.
All right. So where do you want to put the Brewers? I mean, that's
a tough
bunch of mediocre National League Central teams.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out where to put the Giants here at some point too. The Brewers, I mean, it's between B and C. I can very comfortably say that.
Yeah.
They don't have Corbin Burns anymore, which is obviously a big loss. Their offense, there are some question marks. They did bring in Rhys Hoskins, which is a pretty big add for them. Gary Sanchez, that move took about like a month to be made official after it was first reported, which was kind of funny, but it was made official eventually. Their rotation isn't what it used to be. I mean, it's Freddie Peralta. They're not going to get Brandon Woodruff back this year, which is tough. I don't know. How do you feel between B and C? I could go either way.
I would say they're a C tier team. I think that they didn't get better pitching wise. Like you said, Brandon Woodruff is a question mark.
They're not going to, he's not going to pitch.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's basically, a loss of their two studs, right? I mean, I can't imagine that you would still see them as being a favorite to win that division. That's probably why St. Louis arguably could be a B tier team. They probably have a good chance of winning that division. It might be between those three teams if St. Louis was up there in the B tier, but yeah, no, Brewers, I think, are definitely a C-tier team.
So in the Central, we've put, this is interesting, we put the Reds and the Cubs in B, and then we've put the Cardinals and the Brewers in C.
That's what we've done.
Do you agree with the Reds being in B?
Yeah, that's another one that's really hard between those two. I think Hunter Green is going to have a really good season and could really elevate the Reds. They really just need that frontline starting pitcher, right? Yeah. We talked about the Reds Diamondbacks comparison, and they just don't have the Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly at the top.
Right.
So they need that, but I think Hunter Green could be not necessarily quite like a Zach Gallen, but I think he could have a really good season. He really was trending upward toward the end of last year. They've got some good young pitchers as well. So, yeah, you could make a case either way. I think I'm okay leaving them in B.
The Reds could really be I don't know if they're connected, but man, could you imagine if they brought on a Jordan Montgomery or a Blake Snell and how that would...
Anytime the word connected comes out of your mouth, I immediately think the dangerous is like right around the corner.
I actually thought you were going to say, I don't know if they're connected, but they could be dangerous.
I mean,
that's exactly what I thought too.
I say other words sometimes, you guys.
The Reds winning the Central would feed families.
Yeah.
The Reds are cool, man. I mean, the Reds are fun. Like TJ Friedl, Matt McLean, Spencer Steer, Ellie De La Cruz, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Noelvi Marte. They got Jeimer Candelario. Jonathan India is somehow still there. I don't know what position he's going to play. But yeah, they're a fun team that I think has a pretty dang high ceiling because of all those young players and what they could bring. Also, Tim makes a good point in the chat about Jackson Churio with the Brewers. We didn't mention him. He's a huge factor for them this season.
Yeah.
But it's hard to elevate them based on a guy that we haven't actually seen in a major league game yet.
Sure. Marcos says Giants are B tier, and I kind of agree with Marcos. I think that the Matt Chapman move really was a move I didn't like because of how, I mean, honestly, how good that makes them. I mean, it felt like that's kind of what they needed, and I sincerely think that they could be even an A tier team. To be honest, I feel like they could be.
I don't see A. I think there's
B?
too many question marks in the rotation for me to call them an A team. In a perfect world where Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray are healthy, I could maybe see them elevating to that level, but they're gonna try Jordan Hicks in the rotation.
Yeah.
We'll see what that looks like. There's some question marks there. Logan Webb is really the only guy in the rotation that's like, I know what I'm getting. This guy is good,
Sure.
right? Kyle Harrison, a prospect, in one of their top pitching prospects, is going to probably, be counted on in a bigger way this year. So, there's a lot of question marks in that rotation.
I think what we don't know is how is a Bob Melvin Giants team going to be, right? Because that's the big change there. And we know this team, like, it felt like the Giants did a lot without having much. We talked about how they had all of these guys that hit 230 and stuff on their, as part of their lineup. But it really does feel like they were a team last year that was much better than it felt like they had any business being at times as far as record wise.
Sure,
right?
sure.
All the bullpen games that they were throwing out there, all of that stuff. So
it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't, right? But it was effective, right? And, of course, that's what happens when you have a very, very handsome manager.
Correct.
Now you have a very, very good manager in Bob Melvin, but not nearly as handsome. So I don't know how that's going to work out for them. But I will say that it's the Giants do worry me a little bit with Bob Melvin there, with the pieces they've added. I feel like they are a better team. And I think they're just going to make the National League West that much more difficult for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I think I would say B for the Giants.
Okay.
I think the ceiling is fairly high because of Robbie Ray, because of Alex Cobb once he gets healthy. But yeah, I can't put the Giants in an A. I think before Matt Chapman, I would have fairly confidently put the Giants in the C range.
Yeah.
And now I feel comfortable putting them up in the B category.
All right. Well, we got the Diamondbacks and the Phillies, and of course, those are our A teams, right?
Yeah. That feels pretty.
I don't want to give the Phillies that credit, but they deserve it, so we'll do it. As much as I want to do it just out of spite or pettiness, I want to put them. I mean, let's put. You know what, Damon? Just for a second, throw them in F tier.
The Phillies?
Yeah, just put them in. Put them in jail for a little while. You
just want to see what it looks like.
That looks good. Doesn't that look good?
I like
down
that.
There?
I like that.
That's
where they belong.
I just wanted to try it on.
Should I make like a Drew Stubbs tier?
Yeah.
And they just get to be there by themselves. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah. The Philly fanatic is what you really
even remember his name.
Is it Drew Stubbs? Is like the guy who played shortstop for like a long time.
Yeah,
a long time Cincinnati Red, right? Yeah. Phillies and Diamondbacks.
Back in the A tier.
Phillies and Diamondbacks in A. I don't think that the difference between the Diamondbacks and some of the teams that we have below them is necessarily enormous. I mean, you look at the projections, the Diamondbacks versus, like the Diamondbacks, according to Baseball Prospectus, are projected for half a win more than the Cardinals. So the projections don't quite line up necessarily with what we're saying here, but the Diamondbacks
computers are stupid. We know that.
They were just in the World Series, and they had a good offseason, which we've talked about at length. And yeah, I think at this point, you'd rather be the Diamondbacks than you would be the Giants or the Cubs or the Cardinals or the Brewers, any of those teams. You would rather be the Diamondbacks. Maybe the difference isn't massive. It's not as massive as the difference between a couple of other teams we're about to talk about and the rest of the National League. But I do think that there is a difference between where the Diamondbacks are and all of those other teams we talked about, as well as the Phillies. They're in that same category for me.
We have talked about my theory with the leveling up, right? And it's like the Diamondbacks, they established who their core was, and they added pieces to it, and they got their core to be successful, which it was almost like 2 steps going up 2 levels in one season, because this team was there were a lot of question marks about this team at the beginning of last year. So how far they've come from the start of last regular season to now is incredible. And that has allowed them now this offseason to add those free agent pieces that hopefully can, fix some of your shortcomings and get you over the hump, right? And so
for sure,
right now it definitely feels like, the Diamondbacks are a team that had success. They know that it was not as successful as it appears to be. Like the mentality in that clubhouse is very much the correct mentality, which is we almost didn't make the playoffs at all. So we have to make sure that we don't start thinking we're one of these S-tier teams yet, because they're not, right? It's not to say that they can't get back to that point, but this franchise has only won 100 games one time in franchise history. And that one time didn't even matter because it wasn't a year that we actually did anything significant in the playoffs or anything. It just means that, of course, this franchise is moving in the right direction. And I think that A is not just us kind of being homers here. I think it is a fair assessment of where the Diamondbacks actually are. Jesse said it right. When you look at the other teams, you can look at the Diamondbacks and see that they are in a better position than most of these other teams.
Yeah, I think they're closer. Like they're in A, and they're probably closer to B than they are to S.
Sure.
The team's in S, which we're about to get to on a bit of a different level. But yeah, I mean, the Diamondbacks, if we had done this a year ago, are probably confidently in the C tier.
Correct.
And they are in a substantially better position now than they were a year ago.
Well, there's no mystery. It's the Dodgers and the Braves in the S tier, and for good reason, right? Those teams are, these are teams that can literally lose the biggest star on their team, which in the Dodgers case, you'd have to argue who is the biggest star on that team. Obviously, it's Ohtani, but I mean, you could make a case for other guys. But like the Braves could literally lose Ronald Acuna and they'll still win 120 games. Like it's crazy how good those two teams are.
Did you say 120?
Yeah, 120 games, because it's crazy how good those two are. I mean, it doesn't matter, because when you get to the playoffs, it's a completely different season. It's a completely different thing by that point, right? But those are two teams that you can just write as I think somebody one day said, you can write it in ink, that these are in fact.
What is Damon doing right now?
He's creating a new tier of cheaters, it looks like. Yeah. Where are you who are you putting in the cheaters tier? Oh, the Dodgers. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's you know what? That's not an overreaction at all, and I like it.
Yeah, there you go. I figured that before this was over, one of you would at least want to experiment with putting the Dodgers at the very bottom of the tier list.
I feel like this is completely fair. I honestly don't know what everyone's freaking out about right now.
No, can you tell me why they're cheaters?
I'm sorry. Did you not watch this whole offseason? This is the definitive National League tier rankings list right here.
There it is. That's it. We'll publish that and put that on social media, and there won't be any backlash at all in regards to that. That's fine. I
kind of do want to post that to social media.
So they get for circumventing the CBA, right? Right, Damon?
That's right. That's right. Cheaters.
Even though it was really just Shohei Ohtani being entirely too nice with the terms of his contract.